You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB.
Before this podcast kicks off, let's talk about goals. The greatest goal is a native tree crowdfunding campaign, leaving a legacy for Aotearoa New Zealand as co-host of the FIFA Women's World Cup 2023. Visit treesthatcount.co.nz to donate a native tree for a brighter future.
Football Fever with News Talk ZB's voice of football, Jason Pine and Bonnie Jansen with Trees That Count. Donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal.
G'day, welcome into Football Fever, your daily World Cup podcast as this tournament just gets better and better and better. I'm Jason Pine, and it gets better too because Bonnie Jansen's back. How are you?
Hey, Piney. Not too bad, thanks. How are you? Good to be back in the action.
Yeah, well, you've been in the action in Australia. That's where you've been for the last 4 or 5 days. How is the vibe over there, you know, with the Women's World Cup going on and with the Matildas finally waking from their slumber and charging into the round of 16?
As soon as I got off the plane in Melbourne, I was interested to see how hype it was, but definitely a lot of branding, and then driving out from the airport, you just see like Matilda signs everywhere and billboards. So definitely felt it over there. And yeah, exciting for the Matildas that they finished top of the group and they're through.
Now, you didn't go to that game, but I think you were at a game at the same time, weren't you? The Nigeria-Ireland game, which was on at the same time as the Matildas game against Canada. So how did you negotiate that?
Yeah, just a work trip, and it was landed myself in the hospitality box, which was unbelievable. FIFA do a very good job there. But the Nigeria-Ireland game was awesome. There were no goals, but it was I was wanting, hoping that Nigeria would go through, and so they did enough. And then inside the room we had their TV with the Matildas Canada game on, which was equally exciting. I was encouraged to wear an Australian scarf, which I wasn't too happy about. I think football would be the only sport I would do it. The Bledisloe Cup the day earlier, I took it off straight away.
Good stuff. Well, it's good to have you back to the relative mediocrity of this daily podcast with me, but it's good to have your voice back into it. And look, a couple of really interesting games to talk about. Starting with yesterday at Eden Park, Group E, the United States 0, Portugal 0, a massive scare for the US. Big questions now about their hopes of winning the tournament for a third time in a row. Before this, they'd played Portugal 10 times, won them all, and outscored them 39 goals to 0. But Portugal almost, very nearly, caused probably what would have been the greatest upset in the history of the Women's World Cup. Ana Capeta hitting the post in the 91st minute. That goes in, and the United States are out. What's your current assessment about where the US are as they try to find something to give their fans a bit of confidence and optimism?
It's concerning how poor they've been this World Cup. And, there was talk that maybe they won't win it this year, but they would at least go far in the tournament. Now I'm thinking they might not even make it out of the round of 16. They're really, really lucky to be in this position that they're in. And as you said, that those last 8 minutes of extra time was so niggly, and yeah, the States are lucky, but they're going to have to pick up their performance. And Rose Lavelle, who is, their most important player, arguably, is now out for the next game against which is likely going to be Sweden, which is a massive loss. But yeah, so much went wrong for them, and something's going to change.
And it's not just this game, is it? They weren't that great, as we've talked about at length, against Vietnam in their opening game, winning 3-0. And we saw, Vietnam shipped 7 last night against the Dutch. The dam finally broke. They weren't that great, the US, in the first half against the Netherlands in Wellington, but finally sort of found a bit of form after the break. They weren't great for large periods last night. To even make the final, as you've said, they're probably going to have to play Sweden in the round of 16. Then Japan in the quarterfinals and the Netherlands again in the semis. I just can't see them winning it on current form. As you say, I can't see them getting past my pick for the tournament, Sweden, in the round of 16.
Yeah, no, I feel the same. I think the only positive that fans could take out of it is they get the job done. The States, they've done enough. They did enough against Vietnam. No, it wasn't a pretty performance, but they did enough. they did enough against the Netherlands. They got an equaliser, and then they got the draw yesterday. They realised, they couldn't find the net, so they went on and just subbed on a bunch of defenders and parked the bus. But they get the job done. They're professional in that sense. So that's the only kind of hope I see for this team to, go as far as we all hope they do.
Yeah, just 5 points in group play for the win and the 2 draws. That's the fewest in a group stage in the US women's national team's history at a World Cup. Another interesting stat here I saw, Bonnie. US keeper Alyssa Nair didn't make a single save in the group stages. The only shot on target that the US faced was the goal that the Netherlands scored in Wellington. Alyssa Nair didn't make a single save. So I guess if you turn that around, you say, well, the US did pretty well to prevent 3 opponents from getting a shot on target.
Yeah, exactly. And then you look at the front line and you ask what's happening up there. The US have prided themselves on having so much depth in the attacking line, and for some reason it's not working, and it's clearly really hurting them. Those players like the Mallory Swansons, the Katarina Macarios, the Tobin Heaths that missed out on it, that weren't able to be here because of injury. It's really hurting them. But at the same time, they've got Alex Morgan, they've got Sophia Smith. So why they're not scoring, I'm not sure, but hopefully it just is going to click. Against Sweden this weekend. Yeah,
well, a couple of final things before we leave this game. Kudos to Portugal. I thought they gave it everything, gave it a really good crack right across the 3 games actually at their first World Cup, and you could see how devastated they were afterwards. Jessica Silva in the post-match, I couldn't understand what she was saying, but I could absolutely understand the emotion that she was feeling. And a record crowd for a women's sports event in New Zealand, 42,958 turning up there last night. That beat the crowd for New Zealand against Norway in the opening games. So just terrific to see such a huge crowd there at Eden Park last night.
The Football Fever Podcast with Jason Pine and Bonnie Jansen, with trees that count. Donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal.
The other game in Group E, Dunedin, Vietnam 0, the Netherlands 7. Quite the performance from the Dutch, who knew that if the US beat Portugal, they would have to win by a significant margin to top the group on goal difference. I think the Netherlands wanted nothing more than to avoid Sweden in the round of 16, so they just kept on scoring goals. My new favourite player, Jill Roord, amazing. A couple of goals. She was, I know these are only stats, but she was involved in 21 attacking sequences. It says here, Bonnie. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds pretty good.
No, I thought they were amazing, and it was definitely a statement win, as was the England matches, I'm sure we'll get to. But my new favourite player is Esme Brooch. She's only 19 or 20, and she scored 2 unbelievable goals. And I believe she started every game for the Netherlands this tournament, and to be that young and playing that good is pretty special. But yeah, good on the Dutchies. I'm a Dutchie, so it's a good win, top of the group, and yeah.
Just a total domination in Dunedin, 72% possession, 42 shots to 5, 17 of those shots were on target. They even had the opportunity to have the youngest player in Dutch history play, 17 years, 337 days. Victor Kaptein came on, and they will now face the runners-up in Group G. Probably Italy, maybe South Africa. We wait and see what happens in tonight's games. Late games last night. England finally showing us what they can do, hammering China 6-1 in Adelaide. Lauren James, what a player. 2 goals, 3 assists. The first England player to be directly involved in 5 goals or more in a single game at a men's or women's World Cup. I think we were waiting for England to flex their muscles. And they did last night against China.
Yeah, they definitely did. And then you look across the bench and the players they've got there and just the depth they've got. And it kind of, took me back to that USA team. And I got a little bit scared for them. But England were very good. And Lauren James, as you said, exceptional. I was seeing all over Twitter that people were saying she's better than her brother, Reece James, who also plays for England and Chelsea. And I tend to agree. She's a very, very exciting player to watch.
Yeah, hugely influential within this England side. They're the first side in Women's World Cup history to score a goal in at least 16 consecutive matches. That was their 16th game in a row in which they've scored at least one goal. They will meet Nigeria in the round of 16 in Brisbane on Monday night. Have you got England going pretty deep all the way to the final, in fact?
I think so. I mean, if they play like that, you can't not think they will. Yeah, but it's a hard side of the draw. I mean, both sides are hard now with Japan and Spain playing exceptional. But yeah, I'd like to see them at least make the semi-finals. All
right, we'll keep an eye on that once they go into the round of 16. And Haiti 0, Denmark 2 across in Perth. Denmark, probably just about deserved it. Haiti have had a pretty good World Cup, but ultimately miss out on the knockout stages. Denmark go through to the knockout rounds for the first time since 1995, but they've got a tough ask. They've got to go to Sydney to play Australia on Monday night. Will there be anybody Danish in that stadium?
Yeah, honestly, who knows? But that is a very tough ask. But I hope Australia can do it again. I don't like to back Australia in any sport, but I will this tournament. And so, yeah, tough ask for Denmark, but good on them nonetheless.
Yeah, and as you say, with Australia doing so well, it keeps the interest in the tournament high. I haven't had the chance to chat to you, actually, since New Zealand dipped out of the tournament with the 0-0 draw against Switzerland on Sunday. No doubt your disappointment was the same as most people around the country. Just what might have been a missed opportunity for New Zealand?
Yeah, I think it is. And someone asked if you could consider that a failure. And I think failure is quite a harsh word, but at the same time, everything was, in New Zealand's court, and they should have got through. They set themselves up right from the get-go to advance out of that group, and they fell short, but I think, it's they should have been advancing out of that group, so it's a real shame. But at the same time, they broke records in New Zealand, and they can be equally proud. But I think there'll be some big questions from New Zealand football around it.
Absolutely right. We're back in a sec looking at tonight's games on the Football Fever podcast.
While this podcast takes a halftime break, let's talk about The Greatest Goal, a crowdfunding campaign leaving a legacy for Aotearoa New Zealand as co-hosts of the FIFA Women's World Cup 2023 by asking fans to donate a native tree. Each native tree costs just $10, and whether you donate one or many, you'll be contributing to amazing restoration projects across Aotearoa. Visit treesthatcount.co.nz to donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal. Looks like we're ready to kick off the second half.
The Football Fever podcast with Jason Pine and Bonnie Jansen with Trees That Count. Donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal.
All right, let's look ahead to tonight's games. Group G, all four teams are still in with a mathematical chance. Both of these games are at 7. Argentina against Sweden, South Africa against Italy. Sweden just need a point to top this group. Argentina need to win to have a chance of going through, and even that might not be enough. Argentina aren't going to beat Sweden, are they? Sweden are just on fire.
Yeah, they started the tournament a little bit rough, didn't they, against South Africa, 2-1, but yeah, they picked up their game in the next match against Italy, and Italy are arguably the second best team in that group. So yeah, no reason why they shouldn't be getting out of that group, and they're your team. So you'll be hoping for a win. Absolutely,
yeah. They've left their training base or their initial base in Upper Hutt. They had a very emotional farewell from there yesterday to relocate. But I know they've earned a lot of new fans down in the Hutt Valley. So yeah, Argentina, Sweden.
Were they bored? Were they bored like Spain were?
Not at all. No, plenty to do in Upper Hutt, Bonnie, as you know. Plenty to do in that part of the country. So Hamilton tonight, 7:00. And then in Wellington, South Africa, Italy. A win would send Italy through. A win would probably send South Africa through as well unless Argentina beats Sweden, which we can't see happening. So it's kind of a knockout game, one game early for these two. South Africa have started their two games well, haven't they? In fact, I think they scored the opening goal in both of their games before being pegged back to lose and then draw. Italy, well, they had that scrappy 1-0 win first up and then the heavy loss to Sweden. What happens here in Wellington tonight?
I'm backing South Africa. I think after Italy's big loss, I don't know if, that they played bad or what happened there, but South Africa have a real opportunity to pounce on that and will this be the first time they're out of their group? I would say so. First, yeah. And so I think South Africa are going through here.
All right, so let's keep an eye on that. Then Sweden and South Africa for us. I agree, actually. I'd like to see them go through. And I think as well, it's good to have representation across the confederations. We know Nigeria are through from Africa. Morocco still with a chance. Be great to see South Africa go through as well. So that's in Wellington tonight. Then 10 o'clock tonight, the conclusion of Group F. It's France against Panama in Sydney, Jamaica against Brazil in Melbourne. Panama can't make it through. A draw's enough for France. France should beat Panama in Sydney, shouldn't they?
Yeah, they should. I don't see why they wouldn't. Panama have had some heavy defeats, so France should go through surely.
Yep, and I think I think that game's your second screen because I think Jamaica, Brazil, and Melbourne is the main screen. A draw is enough for Jamaica. Brazil need to win to progress unless Panama beat France, which seems highly unlikely. I think, the romantic in me would love to see Jamaica go through, but I don't want a round of 16 without the yellow shirts of Brazil either. So I kind of want Brazil to win this, even though the Jamaican story would be probably more of a fairy tale. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. I was just thinking this originally. I was like, go Jamaica. Like, how cool is that? They'll have Bunny Shaw back, who had a red card, I assume, but then for Marta's sake as well, who is arguably the biggest ever female football icon, for her to go out of this tournament that early, it would be a real shame. So and I agree with you. I think this is your first screen for sure. This will be a good match to watch.
Absolutely. We'll wrap these matches for you tomorrow when a fresh episode of the Football Fever podcast drops at around about the same time. The round of 16 draw is starting to take shape, and there are various places online where you can plug in the teams who are in the round of 16, then you can do your predictions. Bonnie and I were sending our predictions to one another last night. I've still got Sweden going quite deep. I've got a Sweden-England final. I think yours was Spain-England, I think was what you arrived at.
Spain-England.
Yeah.
If that happens, it'd be Spain meet Japan in the semi-final, and even though Spain had a big loss, I think Spain will bounce back and beat them this time. But who knows?
Who knows?
It's a way away.
Yeah, it is. And, I mean, hasn't the football been terrific? Just to finish, every night I just sit on my couch and just watch with a growing sense of admiration for the skill level here. And its own, imagine these round of 16 games, Bonnie, how high the quality and the drama is going to be once we get to the knockout rounds.
Yeah, it's been exciting football, but that's only just the beginning, and these games get, even more exciting. So, just like you, so excited, but also don't want it to end. I want it to slow down. It's so nice having something on the TV every day. And I've also been really glad that the country and Australia as well are getting behind it, regardless of New Zealand not doing too well. These crowds have been insane, and it just excites me. Like, friends of mine that aren't even into football are wanting to go to games and things like that. So it's very cool.
Yep, just terrific. Fresh episode of Football Fever from us tomorrow around about the same time. Enjoy your day. We'll see you then.
In this post-match review, let's score the greatest goal by donating a native tree to leave a legacy for Aotearoa New Zealand as co-hosts of the FIFA Women's World Cup 2023. Visit treesthatcount.co.nz to donate a native tree for a brighter future.
Football Fever with Jason Pine and Bonnie Jansen with Trees That Count. Donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal. For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.